Hey there everybody, it's Mark Curley. I'm back with another message to my subscribers videos, and this one is going to be the last one that comes out before my new series, Brodys Ghost, hits the stores. It's supposed to be July 14th. That's the official date from Dark Horse. Let me just go ahead and kick things off by showing you some sample interior art, plus the front cover art, the first thing you're going to see. And I hope you enjoy what you see, and I'll be back to answer some of your questions as soon as this is finished. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that. Those are some of my favorite pieces of art from the book. And let me go ahead and start drawing. I'm going to draw a picture of Brody here today, my main character, while I talk to you and answer some of the questions that I've had lately. The first question comes from Infernio82, and I should say that a lot of these questions are from a long time ago. My apologies if you've been sitting around waiting for the answers to this question for a long time. But the question is this new project going to be in more stores than Miki Falls was? And you know what? I really hope so. And you all out there can play a big part in determining the answer to that if you will go to your local bookstore right now and ask them if they'll be carrying Brodys Ghost. Tell them that you would like them to carry Brodys Ghost, that you would like to buy it at their store. I mean, those of you who are willing to buy it online at a place like Amazon, that's great too. In fact, I'm going to include the link for the pre-order. But I know some of you out there just don't really like to order things online. You want to walk into the store, find it on the shelf, and just buy it like that. And boy, I would love for you to be able to do that. But I think the only way it's going to happen, for sure, is if you go now. It's June, early June. If you go now to your bookstore where you would like to see it and buy it, and tell them that you want to see it on the shelves, that's really going to help guarantee that situation. You know, not everybody can see their manga on the shelf. There's just so many titles out there, and they have to pick, you know, the big top sellers, basically, or the ones that the companies are really pushing hard. And so for one of the little guys like me, the only way of guaranteeing that it will be at your local store is by asking now. So big thank you in advance to anyone who does that. I really do hope that we're at the stage that it will be at more stores than Miki Falls was. So let me go ahead and answer another question. All right, well, here's a question from Eric Van Lichtenstein. And the question is there a limit to how many pages you can make for each volume or book? And that's a great question. Yes, absolutely, there is a limit. Each book is about 80 to 85 pages long in terms of the story and art pages that must be supplied by me. And so you do have to be careful as a writer to plan it out and make sure that you know, you do everything that you want to do in that relatively brief amount of time. You can't just sort of start writing and figure you'll end at a good place by the time you reach page 80 or 85. You need to really think things through. And I wish, in a way, that each book were longer, but as some of you may know, I originally proposed this as a 3-book series, and Dark Horse Comics thought that it might be better to have it as a 6-book series of 6 smaller books, and so that's what we're going with. And it's kind of interesting. I think it's a new format. I've never tried to tell a story this way, and it's kind of I like actually having the opportunity to hit the stores 6 different times. So let me go ahead and move on to another question. This is kind of a joint question between 2 different people. Mythic Skater asks, is Dark Horse overly demanding, or do they give you a lot of space to work in? And then Alex Costa 666 has very much the same kind of question. My question is, if Dark Horse gives you all the freedom in doing your manga, or do they put up some restrictions? And so those are great questions about, we sometimes have this idea that maybe the publishers are like these people sitting around a table, smoking cigars and saying, here's what we want this story to be like, and you make sure Crowley does it that way. The truth is, it's not like that at all. Certainly not with Dark Horse. I came up with my story. I pitched it to them. And they are very much hands-off in terms of where the story goes and how I do it. Now, that doesn't mean that I just write anything that I want and hand it in and have that go into the stores. No, there is a sort of a rough draft version that I hand in, and my editor looks at it and comes up with suggestions on how it can be improved. But those are not so much like, oh, this will, here's, if you want it to sell better, you got to do this. It's not so much that. It's more just sort of story stuff and making sure that it's clear to the reader what I'm getting at. I'm actually very pleased with how much freedom I have to do the story the way I like. And so that's good news for those of you who want to do comics or manga someday. You don't have to worry that they're going to come in and just destroy your vision. No, basically, if they didn't like your basic concept, they would have never hired you to begin with. So I think in a way that initial hurdle is passed when they decide to give you a contract and take you on. That means they like your story pretty much as is. There may be a little bit of tweaking here and there, but you don't have to worry about them coming in and saying, change this character into a girl instead of having it as a boy. I've never heard of that kind of ridiculous changes like that being imposed on a creator. Certainly not in my career, anyway. Let's move on to the 4th and what will have to be the final question for this video. Hang on just a second. It is from Wolf Demons. Do you plan a lot of your story out before you start, or are you making up a lot of it as you go along? That's just a great question for those of you who want to be writers, whether of comics or novels or screenplays or anything. It's a great question. Do authors, writers, make it up as they go, or do they plan absolutely everything out in every detail? For me, it's a mix of the two. I have an outline. I sit down and I kind of figure out what the story is, beginning to end. It's especially important, I think, to figure out your ending early on, so that you don't paint yourself into a corner. But I think in my case, I need to have all of the key plot points figured out. Especially if there's going to be like a sort of a twist or something, that a shocking revelation. You need to plan that stuff out. Otherwise, it won't work. You'll come up with this plot twist. You'll try to work it in, and it just logically won't make sense. If you've plotted it out in advance, then you can say, oh boy, if I introduce this way back within the first few pages, then this other thing that I've come up with will not feel like it just suddenly came out of nowhere. That being said, I do like to come up with certain things as I go. I like to leave it a little bit loose so that if I come up with an idea on the fly, I can work it in, and that leaves a little bit of spontaneity to it. I think if I had come up with absolutely everything in advance, every single word that everyone says, If I work it out too much in advance, then I'm bored of my own story before I even start writing. And so I have a kind of a mix of the two. And I should say that some people truly will just make their entire thing up as they go. I did that in the early years for my Akiko series, or Akiko comic book series. A lot of that really was just sort of made up on the fly. As I've gotten further along in my career, I have learned the need of planning things out a little bit more. But I do sort of leave it open. And in Miki Falls, you know, some even major plot twists came to me relatively late as I was going. And I think you owe it to yourself in a way to stay a little bit loose and accepting of these new ideas that suddenly hit you. If you can work it in, then by all means do it. You know, you don't get all of your best ideas right at the start. Sometimes they come to you later on. So anyway, thanks so much for all the questions. I hope that my answers were useful for you, and thanks in advance to anyone who is special ordering or pre-ordering Brodys Ghost in advance at Amazon. I really do greatly appreciate your support, and thanks also to those of you, as I said at the beginning of the video, who go to your local bookstore, if you indeed want to buy it at your local bookstore. Thanks if you ask them right now in the month of June to have that book on the shelves when it comes out July 14th. Well, I think we're done with this drawing. I hope you enjoyed watching me do it, and thanks again for watching my videos, friends. I honestly will be back with another one real soon.